Get away from me.
Away in a
No.
manger.
Okay, hello and welcome to the Ruby Tuesday. My name's Ruben.
And I'm Kay.
Today we are reviewing Netflix's original series, Away.
An American astronaut struggles with leaving her husband and daughter behind to embark on a dangerous mission with an international space crew.
There are 10 episodes, about 55 minutes apiece. I was going to say 55 minutes apiece. Me meist, yeah. It's a slow burn.
Yeah.
And for context, we watched a couple of these episodes when we visited my parents. And my dad, at the beginning of watching one of the episodes with us, because we had to kind of get the review out, so we had to watch it with them. We're like, oh, what are you watching? We're watching that. And they started watching, and my dad was like, oh, this is really slow, isn't it? Cue to the next episode, halfway through, and he was like, hooked.
Absolutely.
So that's what this series is. It hooks you with the characters,
Yes.
but it's also not quite what you expect.
If you're expecting a kind of action-packed, thrilling adventure in space, maybe this is not it. I think the first few episodes probably have better pacing. They're quite, obviously, to get you hooked into the series. Quite a lot happens. But then the midsection, not a whole lot happens. Stuff happens, but not a whole lot. And I think either you're going to really appreciate it and enjoy it. It feels like it's quite indulgent for a modern series to take its time really developing characters, really like allowing emotions to brew and simmer and allowing scenes to unfold at a pace that kind of is, I guess, akin to what it's like in space. You can't move really fast in no gravity. Everything is sort of slow and floaty, and it kind of feels a little bit like, in parts, that's how the series is, a bit slow and floaty. But by the end of it, you're so hooked, so gripped by the characters.
Yeah, I mean, they do.
You
They
said doo-doo.
They do the problem of the day.
Yes.
In each episode,
Yeah.
there is a thing that goes wrong in space, and they have to work that out, and that kind of drives the story forward. But where it really concentrates is what's happening with these characters, and it's partly why I think really like the characters, why they get you invested in the characters, is the backstories that they show with these characters. So they show you through flashbacks of, and most of those flashbacks are when they're young. So you get an idea of what they were like as kids, but you also get an idea of what brought them to be a spaceman or spacewoman.
Yeah.
And so it really adds weight and levity. And most of their lives are difficult and complicated, and as is everybody. So it's almost like a slice of life, but in space. And so while we're watching stuff happen in space and them deal with the issues, we're also seeing some of the families. One family in particular.
Yes.
Where they're partly to do with Houston or NASA. I was going to say Houston. Houston, we have a problem in NASA.
Which might be in Houston, I don't know.
Yes, I think it is. So you see NASA and how they have to keep helping the rocket and their astronauts. Russian. I'm a Russian astronaut.
In the Russian space station.
The way they allow characters to know certain things. I don't know that they would choose that, because it affects your captain. It affects, if you know certain things, and it's going to affect you emotionally, it's going to affect your ability to captain.
Yeah.
I don't know that you would do that. Also, there's this thing with technology that I'm
It's
just not
amazing.
sure it exists. Okay, so they're on their way to Mars, and they have this ability to be able to talk like instantaneously, FaceTime on the rocket on Earth. Now, if you know how your mobile or Wi-Fi struggles from room to room on Earth, the fact that they can do that in space. Now, I would say, yeah, maybe they're using the best technology ever, and they've, giving so much time and resources into this, because being able to speak to them is really important. But as far as I'm aware, there should be a delay. And the further they get out, there should be even more of a delay. And then there should be a place where they just can't. Unless they have many satellite relays, but even the relay of information through bits and binary and then coming back into the picture that it needs to be would take time. And so there's a little bit of disbelief. I don't think we have that technology yet, but it's also a little bit confusing as to when this is set. It feels like there's stuff that's gone on, and our space station program, our space program has gotten better.
Yeah, so maybe it's a few years in the future.
Yeah, so maybe you just... But it feels like, but it does feel like it's now, because the mobile phones and everything's the same. The cars we're driving, nothing looks spacey, nothing looks futuristic. So that's my only qualm of the series, is to do with the real.
Is it real?
Because they make it so tangible. They make it so based on, this is what would happen if you were in space. Because they tackle things in this that I wasn't expecting. Like, what does it mean to actually live in space? How does it affect your body? So we've seen that a little bit in films like Gravity and Apollo 13, but never quite to this extent. Even Lost in Space doesn't tackle any of that. Even the other series, like space series, we never, like BSG, Battlestar Galactica.
BSG.
They don't show the effects of space. They show the effects of what happens when you get shot out into space, but not like living in space. What does that mean for your body? What happens to your body? And dealing with that, with the emotional states that these characters are going through, with the emotional states that their families are going through, and then splicing that together, I thought was very good.
Yeah.
More.
Okay. I think it's beautifully filmed. I think it's beautifully shot. I think it's, I wouldn't say there's too many shots that make you go, whoa, that's incredible, but it's all really solid. It's all like well filmed. It's all well put together. I didn't have any problems with being able to hear people, which is fantastic, because sometimes there's like score and then there's dialogue down here, and you can't actually hear what you want to hear, and you have to keep turning it up and turning it down. This one was okay. There were a few like raw moments where you're like, oh, that's loudy loud. But on the whole, I thought it was all really well put together. Yeah.
I was surprised by how much I liked the characters when it came towards the last few episodes. This is something that we were talking about in our conversation, because at the beginning, there's a few that really come across as douchebags. And even the captain, you feel like, are you suitable for this job? And that is mentioned, and she has to fight for her position, and there's all that kind of stuff, and internal politics and internal discourse between the crew.
Yeah, of course, they're all international as well, so you've got lots of different countries represented, and all of that weight that brings as well.
And they're all the best of the best of the best. So there's pride. I know better than you, because I'm from this country. But by the time you get to the end, without doing massive spoilers, I think the characters have grown a lot.
Yes.
Which I was really impressed. I was like, wow, okay, that is a lot of character development.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I think this might split audiences, because if like I said, if you're looking for an adventure that's fast-paced and sort of like a space adventure, this is probably not that. But if you're looking for something that is a slow burner that really digs deep into characterization and gives you the chance to, simmer along with the characters. Yes, so it's like when you put a stew on, and you've got to let it simmer to let all the flavors come out and let it all. You can't rush that. I mean, I guess you could put it in a pressure cooker, but still, that wouldn't work. Anyway, sometimes you need time to let things develop. And this series really takes the time to let things develop. And so a modern audience, I'm not sure. We're used to things that are much more fast-paced. And so there might come a point where you're like, oh, this is boring.
Yeah, maybe. I thoroughly enjoyed it. There was a point where I went, what are you doing with this series? Where's the arc?
Yeah.
But once you understand what it's doing, I think you become invested in the characters. I just want to talk about Hilary Swank as being the captain. There is a bit of hate for Hilary Swank out there for her acting. A lot of people just don't regard her as a great actress. Really? I'm always surprised by those remarks, because every film I see her in, I feel like she does a really great job. I'm a champion of Hilary Swank, and I think she does carry, for the most part, she carries the series when she's in space. But I think she's surrounded by other great actors, or more characters that are defined by the writers, that you come to love them as a group, which is really interesting and fun to watch. And then you have her husband, who's played by the guy that was in The Good Wife, who I'll never get over what happened to him. And the Good Wife is fantastic, but he has great presence. You just immediately kind of trust him. Although he does play his character a bit more moody, but you'll understand why when you see what happens. And so you have him on the ground dealing with stuff on the ground, and you have her, Hilary, in space. And so you have those two storylines that mix together, and that just felt like there was a really great balance. The more I watched it, the more I liked it. So I started off probably around the C range going, I'm not sure I'm going to like this as much as I want to. I'm a big champion of space stuff. I love sci-fi. This is more grounded sci-fi, but I still really loved it. And then by the time I got to the finish, I think I was like, yeah, okay, that's an A-. Yeah.
Yeah, I probably would have started a bit higher because I think I was more invested in this immediately than you were. I have slight issues with a couple of the characters, the way they're written, just that they're just too nice. And I'm like, where's the reality here? Anyway, sometimes it's nice to have nice characters, isn't it?
Not everybody has to be a douchebag.
Well, yes, Anywho. And then, yes, it definitely, like lasagna the second day, tastes great.
I would have gone with pizza, but okay, lasagna.
You gotta let the flavors really sit and develop, and by the end of it, you've got something that is really tasty and really good and feels really wholesome as well. And I think that's something that we don't get a whole lot of anymore in our TV.
Yeah. Before we wrap up, this might be a minor spoiler. So if you enjoyed our review, then switch off now. But this is a minor spoiler just for those that get annoyed with endings. Okay, so this is basically the first chapter in their story. That isn't around the complete story.
Yeah.
The journey isn't complete, and I think that's all I want to say on the subject. So I know some people are like, you've left it on a cliffhanger. There is a cliffhanger. But there is a part of the story that's completed.
Yeah.
It feels right.
Yes.
It feels like, that's a good place to stop. If you're reading a book and you get halfway through, you end it, or that's a good place to stop. It feels like that.
Yeah.
I'm really looking forward to the next chapter. I really hope it gets picked up.
Another season.
Because if it stops there, I would be really sad. It would be devastating. We need to know what happens.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, let us know when you see it, what you think. Are you excited for this? If you haven't seen it, is it one of those that you'd be most anticipated for, from Netflix series? This was one that I was tentatively excited for. I looked at it and thought, that could be good. And Hilary Swank was like, that...
I was excited for it.
Oh, there you go. And happily, we can say it kind of lived up to our expectations.
Yes, it did.
All right, thanks so much for watching this review. But most of all, until next time, remember,
live long and Tuesday.